In the news tonight, a spate of bombings across the Iraqi capital kills at least 24 people 2 days after the deadliest attack in Baghdad since Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi took office a year ago.
A temporary ceasefire between warring parties in Syria collapsed as negotiations failed to reach a more permanent agreement to end the fighting in a town near the Lebanese border.
And the U.S. Secretary of State raised the American flag above the U.S. Embassy in Havana for the first time in 54 years and addressed Cubans about democracy and human rights on state television. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news.
Hello and welcome.
We begin here at home, where the National Council for Competitiveness and Innovation met to discuss reforms that will be carried out in a stepped-up effort involving the public and private sectors to enhance the investment climate in the kingdom as a top national priority. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour, who chaired the meeting, noted that the Council had been rejuvenated to be more focused on improving the business climate, finding the means to increase activity in the various economic, productivity and service sectors, and raising growth rates. He said the Council, which incorporates more than 18 institutions, entities and chambers representing the private sector, oversees economic activity in the kingdom as a whole, not the competitiveness of a certain sector. And so noted that the Council's mandate, part of the Jordan 2025 blueprint, will continually be upgraded to draw up policies that contribute to improving the business environment in the country.
A Palestinian teenager was shot dead by Israeli police after allegedly stabbed an Israeli paramilitary policeman patrolling a road in the occupied West Bank. Israeli authorities claim the teenager approached the Israeli troops at a West Bank border crossing and asked for a glass of water. And when a soldier turned to get the water, the teenager attacked him with a knife. The shooting comes amid growing tensions between Palestinians and Israelis following an arson attack last month by suspected Jewish extremists that killed a Palestinian toddler and his father. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas condemned the shooting as a grave escalation and held the Israeli government responsible. A statement issued by Abbas's office said the crime was a continuation of the daily killings, which no one can be silent at. A spate of bombings across Baghdad killed at least 24 people and wounded 35 others. The deadliest attack took place in the Shiite district of Hababiyah, where 15 people were killed when a car bomb exploded near an open area where cars are displayed for sale. 2 more people were killed and 7 wounded in a bomb blast targeting vehicle repair shops in Tanji in north of the capital. Other blasts in a busy commercial streets and markets in Jisr, Diyala, Madain and Iskan killed 7. 2 days ago, more than 70 people were killed in Hababiyah in a massive truck bomb blast claimed by Daesh. And to the fight against Daesh terrorists, where US-led forces continued bombarding their group's targets in Syria and Iraq. In Iraq, strikes were concentrated near Ramadi, with coalition forces launching 5 strikes as a part of an attempt to clear the way for the Iraqi army to recapture the city that fell to the group in May. Tactical units were hit, buildings, a weapons cache, vehicles and improvised explosives devices were destroyed. Forces also conducted 5 airstrikes in Syria and destroyed excavators, a bulldozer, fighting positions and a machine gun with 3 strikes near Al-Hasaka. On the ground in Syria, a temporary ceasefire between warring parties collapsed as negotiations failed to reach a more permanent agreement to end the fighting in near town, the Lebanese border, and 2 villages in the northwest. The ceasefire between the Syrian army and its Lebanese ally, Hezbollah on one hand, and one alliance of Syrian insurgent groups on the other hand, had been in effect since Wednesday in the town of the Zabadani and villages of Kafriya and Al-Fu'a. The ceasefire was designed to give a chance for negotiations aimed at a more lasting cessation of hostilities in both areas. But Ahrar al-Sham, the rebel group leading the negotiations on behalf of the insurgents, said the talks had failed and insurgents had begun to step up military activity again. Hezbollah said the truce had ended without a final agreement on a ceasefire, and rebel positions near Zabadani were being shelled. Lebanese authorities detained hardline cleric Ahmed al-Asir, wanted for attacks on the Lebanese army as he tried to flee the country. Al-Asir was arrested at Beirut airport as he tried to depart using a forged passport, where the national news agency said he wanted to travel to Egypt. Charges against him include forming a terrorist organization and inciting violence against the army. Asir rose to prominence with the onset of the civil war in neighboring Syria that fueled sectarian tensions between Lebanese Sunnis and Shiites. In 2013, 12 Lebanese soldiers were killed when they stormed a mosque complex belonging to Asir in the southern city of Sidon.
At least 46 people have been killed in clashes between Daesh terrorists and forces loyal to the official government in two Libyan cities. The fighting typifies the chaos in Libya, where two governments are battling for control 4 years after the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi. In the main eastern city of Benghazi, Daesh attacked forces loyal to the official government, killing 9 soldiers and destroying a tank and 3 military vehicles. 7 soldiers were also wounded in the attack in the central area near the commercial port, closed for more than a year because of the fighting. And in Sirt, a central city about 500 kilometers east of the capital Tripoli, Daesh fought with a rival Salafist Muslim group and armed residents who have been trying to expel it. The Italian Navy rescued over 300 migrants after 40 died attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea from Libya to Europe. The victims were thought to have got trapped and suffocated in the waterlogged hold of a boat after it took on water. The Mediterranean has become the world's most deadly crossing point for migrants. More than 2,300 people fleeing war and poverty have died this year in attempts to reach Europe by boat. Meanwhile, the Greek island of Kos was the scene of further unrest today as migrants desperate to get off the island fought each other. Dozens of Asian migrants were waiting to process their papers in order to board a passenger ship, but authorities in Greece have said that Syrians have the priority as they are classed as refugees. Here's more.
Tempers turned to violence on the Greek island of Kos. About 50 migrants desperate to leave are fighting for the next ticket out. The island is on the front line of the migrants' crisis and is struggling to cope. At least 4,000 are camped out there. Some say they are being ignored.
They're not giving us food. Okay, not give food, not give electricity. We just want our paper. Give us paper and we leave this island.
Migrants need tickets to board the ferries bound for the mainland. But with around 800 migrants arriving each day, the line only gets longer. And with priority given to Syrian refugees fleeing their civil war, the others, economic migrants, say they're left in limbo and that other countries are getting preferential treatment.
Our Afghan people, Iran people had problem. 10 tag here, no paper, no ticket, no essence. So this is problem.
Kos authorities simply hope they can move the migrants to other parts of Greece. But even as the officials ship the migrants out, more keep arriving.
The death toll from 2 massive explosions that tore through an industrial area in the northeastern Chinese port of Tianjin on Wednesday has risen to 104. Today, a series of small explosions and additional fires broke out at the site of a chemical blast as plumes of black smoke could be seen rising from a group of already burnt-out cars. Meanwhile, Chinese officials have for the first time confirmed the presence of a deadly chemical at the site of 2 major explosions, and police have extended the evacuation zone to 3 kilometers from the blast site. That includes a school that had been set up as a safe haven for residents.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called for political change in Cuba, telling Cubans they should be free to choose their own leaders. The comments came as Kerry watched the U.S. flag fly at the American embassy in Havana for the first time in 54 years, and shortly before he met with the Cuban Foreign Relations Minister Bruno Rodriguez. Leading a ceremony to mark the restoration of diplomatic relations between the Cold War adversaries, Kerry declared a new era in U.S.-Cuban relations, but pressed the communist government on democracy and human rights. Kerry's comments drew a firm riposte from the Rodriguez, who defend Cuba at a joint news conference with Kerry and criticized the United States on record on rights. And while the tone in U.S.-Cuban relations has improved greatly since the détente was announced in December, the blunt statements and rebukes underscored how far the two countries are from normal relations after decades of hostilities that outlived the Cold War.
The United States will always remain a champion of democracy. We remain convinced the people of Cuba would be best served by a genuine democracy, where people are free to choose their leaders, express their ideas, practice their faith, where the commitment to economic and social justice is realized more fully, where institutions are answerable to those they serve, and where civil society is independent and allowed to flourish.
And as relations between the United States and Cuba slowly warm, chefs from Cuba's top eateries are spending a week at some of Miami's best restaurants demonstrating their skills. Despite challenges like hard-to-find ingredients and limited cooking equipment, Cuba is home to numerous paladares, or small eateries, that are hoping for booming business with American tourists on the horizon. Many of the chefs have training from top culinary schools and restaurants in France. These chefs are looking to learn how to buy and account for equipment and ingredients, and to learn how to make the most of the vast quantities of ingredients U.S. chefs have on hand that Cuban chefs hope to have soon.
We wanted to make an exchange of cultures. It's really important to speak with other chefs from other places, especially Cuba. For me, it's a great place. It's a rich place with a lot of culture. So I wanted to know more about their food.
There has been a lot of cooperation in all the places we've been, all the restaurants we've been to. They have offered us the greatest support, the greatest satisfaction. The thing is that being a chef is knowing how to handle money, knowing how to do the buy, and how to take advantage of the produce in one form or another.
Andy Murray of Great Britain earned himself a place in the semi-finals of the Rogers Cup in Montreal, Canada, where he defeated defending champion of Joe Wilfried Tsonga of France in 2 sets. In a rain-delayed match, a single break of serve in each set was enough to give Murray victory. The 1 hour, 40 minutes game ended with Murray winning 6-4, 6-4 and setting up a semi-final against Japan's Kai Nishikori. Yamaha's Jorge Lorenzo broke the lap record to take the pole positions for the Czech MotoGP in Brno. The double world champions finished ahead of Marc Marquez and championship leader Valentino Rossi for his second pole of the season. The Spaniard had already broken Carl Crutchlow's 2013 pole record in practice and then set an unbeatable 1 minute 55 seconds in qualifying. Dani Pedrosa crushed in practice but recovered to take 9th position. And looking at the weather forecast, fair weather in most regions tonight and relatively hot in the Jordan Valley and in Aqaba, with northwesterly light moderate winds. As for tomorrow, hot conditions across the kingdom are in the forecast as temperatures rise to become 5 to 7 degrees above seasonal average. Winds will be southeasterly moderate to brisk, stirring dust in the southern and eastern regions.
And further south, the Gulf of Aqaba should expect hotter and drier conditions, with temperatures reaching the mid-40s. Northerly moderate, brisk winds and slightly choppy seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. A spate of bombings across the Iraqi capital kills at least 24 people, 2 days after the deadliest attack in Baghdad since Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi took office a year ago.
A temporary ceasefire between warring parties in Syria collapsed as negotiations failed to reach a more permanent agreement to end fighting in a town near the Lebanese border.
And the U.S. Secretary of State raised the American flag above the U.S. Embassy in Havana for the first time in 54 years and addressed Cubans about democracy and human rights on state television. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Aliyah Tuqan.
And I'm Louay Balkar. Thank you for watching and have a good night.
Good night.